Welcome to today's lesson. My name is Robin Thornton from robinthornton.co.uk. I am a music teacher who posts these videos for the benefit of my students, and one of my students asked about key and about scale. So that's what today's lesson is going to be on. For the purposes of the lesson, I've chosen a melody line which melodically should be fairly obvious to you. I have rhythmically squared it off to mostly crotchets with minim just announcing the cadence at the end, and this is what the melody line goes like. So for copyright reasons I've taken the rhythm out of it, but it's a very good example of what it is that I'm trying to teach. This piece of music is in the key of C. It starts on a C. It moves up the octave to a C as well, so it's very clearly stating we are in C. But more commonly, it's the last note of the piece that will denote what key the piece is in. What I mean by key is this: when you strike something, whether it's a blacksmith striking an anvil with a hammer, and I'll go back to why a blacksmith and an anvil is important in a moment, or whether you're striking a glass, or whether it is a bullet being shot out of a gun and then hitting a piece of metal in the woods somewhere, you hear the initial strike, and then you hear another tone. You hear the tones being, as I strike a glass, you can hear the notes fragmenting. And certainly Pythagoras in ancient Greece heard the hammer falling on the anvil, which is why a blacksmith is often used to explain this. And as the hammer falls on the anvil, you can hear the ringing coming off it. Anyway, Pythagoras went on to understand how the ringing works, and that's how we construct music. So when we're saying what is the key of a piece, we're really saying what was the note which was struck by the thing that you struck, whether it's an anvil or whether it's a glass or whether it's that bit of metal that the bullet hits. What is the note that you struck that allowed the rest of the notes to happen? In this case, it is the note C. We can see at the beginning of the piece, we can see at the end of the piece, and I think every bar except this one here has a C in it. It keeps pulling back to that home place of C. There's no place like home. So we start in Kansas and we end in Kansas, if you have heard the tune. We start at home and we end at home as well. So the home note in this particular case is C. Now, a couple of different things to note here. The C is the first note, and that's the key note within the piece. Note here, between the B and the C, that there is a semitone. Moving from B on a piano up to a C is a one key difference, therefore it is called a semitone. Two keys is a tone, one key difference is a semitone, or half a tone. That's what semitone means. On a guitar, B and C are on neighbouring notes. There is one note difference between them. Not two notes, which would be a tone, but one note, which makes it a semitone. The reason this is important is what sets up key. If I take this same piece of music and just copy exactly the same thing above, but if I move it to 5 notes higher, which is G, then most of it will work, except this section that should have a semitone difference. B to C is a semitone. F natural to G natural is a tone, it's not a semitone. Oh, I didn't notice that before. The same thing actually happens in the second to third note. This is descending C to B, which is descending by a semitone. So this should descend by a semitone as well. But F and G are a tone apart. Now, here's the first melody. And here's the second. And that doesn't make any sense. So one thing we could do is I could add a sharp here. Ooh, that needs to be a sharp as well. So from the beginning, that's beginning to sound like the tune that we know. Now, there are a few sharps that are in here, and I could go through labeling each one at a time, but seeing as we need the semitone between these two notes here, always, and the reason that we need it always is because when we strike the anvil, let's say it's a G anvil, let's say it's an anvil with the note G written on it, and it is tuned to a G, then what you will find is that the semitone difference between these two notes is always there, which means because it is always there, it's always F sharp to G, which happens in the key of G, or the anvil of G. If the key is changed, so the key is C, the semitone is still in existence. It's just that the semitone gives rise to no sharps or flats, because C to B natural is a semitone, so we don't need to add any sharps or flats. One thing I could do to just tidy this up is look up my key signatures. It's over here. Momentarily forgot where it was. If I put in into a key of G major, I'm just going to do that again actually to show you. G major has one sharp, and the reason it has one sharp in it is that it has the semitone difference between F sharp and G must be maintained for it to be G major. If it was F natural to G, it would not be a G major anymore. And it would be modally correct, but it would not be the right scale. So actually I can just get rid of that. So now, this F sharp rings the whole way through the F sharps that are on the top line, which should be fairly obvious because that's where the F sharp is written, but also should be showing up down here as well. Every single sharp in the key of F sharp, every single sharp in the key of G major is an F sharp. It doesn't matter if it's on the top line or if it's on the bottom space. Every single F that you come across is going to be sharpened to an F sharp to allow for that semitone difference, which must be in place for it to be a G major. So task number 1 is to play a C major scale, which is a scale going from C to C with no sharps or flats. this part of the piece is in the key of C major, so no sharps or flats. Let's redo that. Kind of highlight the whole of this. Change the key signature. C major, no sharps or flats. So here we have the key of G major with an F sharp. And over here we have the key of C major, which has no sharps or flats. Now, when Pythagoras was at the blacksmith's, he heard the hammers ringing on the anvils. He heard, as the hammer hit the anvil, a resultant tone came out of the anvil, which gave rise to the understanding of C major being being a scale that has notes which communicate with each other but have no sharps or flats because of the semitone in there. Another thing that Pythagoras discovered was that when you hear an anvil being struck, or anything, it can be a glass, it can be a piece of metal being struck by a bullet, the distance between the first note and the other note that you hear is always 5. This is why I chose G major as being the other version of the piece that I showed. G is 5 notes away from C, and for that reason it's the next one that has 1 sharp. I can go in the opposite direction. So let's say I take my C major scale here, I come down here, and I'll bring this back into C major momentarily. 5 notes in the opposite direction will bring us to F major. So if I take my piece of music here and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now it gets awfully low there, so I'm actually going to control up and bring those notes up into the the register where it's easy enough to read. So what's happening here is that we are 5 notes lower than C rather than 5 notes higher than C. We're now in the key of F major, which should sound mostly okay, but there's another little thing that we need to have a look at. These B's are sounding a little out of tune. Listen now. That would sound better if it was a B flat. Let's try that. Ooh, there we go again. That's your B flat there. And it sounds nice and in tune. So with the C major, you should be playing from C to C with no sharps or flats. With the G major, you should be playing from G to G with 1 sharp. This is the F sharp. And in the key of F major, which is over here, we can see that we have 1 flat. The reason for this, if I take you back to the C major, example, we have seen that there's a semitone between the 7th degree of the scale, and what I mean by the 7th degree of the scale is the note B in this context. Note number 1 is C, 2 is D, 3 is E, 4 is F, 5 is G, 6 is A, and 7 is B. The distance between the 7th degree, that's the B, and the 8th, which is the C again, is a semitone, which we can see here. The distance between the 4th degree and the 3rd degree, or the 3rd degree and the 4th degree, is just that this falls out as the 3rd degree and the 4th degree. The distance is a semitone as well, so there's 2 semitones within a major scale. One of those distances is between the 7th and the 8th, as we've already discovered, giving rise to a B natural in C major, or an F sharp in G major. The other place where there is a semitone is between the 3rd degree and the 4th degree, giving rise to an E natural and an F natural in C major, a B natural and a C natural in the key of G, but it has to be a B flat followed by an A natural in the key of F major. Between the 3rd and 4th degrees there's a semitone as well. We can see here A natural to B flat is where the semitone arises. So if we were to play from F to F with no sharps or flats, something would sound out of tune, and the reason it would sound out of tune is that the semitone wouldn't be correct between the 3rd and 4th degree. If we make the B into a B flat, which we can see in the key signature, then it gives us something that sounds in tune. We could replicate the same exercise for every key, but that would become boring. Well, it would become intensely interesting if you're learning all of the keys, but I think if you're at the stage where you're asking about keys and asking about scales, you're probably doing grade 1, so let's not overload you too much. What I do need to do at this stage is give you the next piece of homework, the next task. And I've suddenly lost where I want to be. Let's see if we can add multiple bars here. There we go. So the next task for you to do is this. Just neaten that up slightly. Yeah, let's do this way. Now, did you hear there? That sounded a little strange. The reason it sounded strange is because this B is still a B flat, because we're still in the key of F. So if I want this to be C major, what I need to do is I need to remember that there needs to be a semitone between the 7th degree and the 8th degree. So that needs to be C major, which gives me C to C with no sharps or flats. No, I won't copy and paste. If I go from G to G, then there are two things going on here. This B flat doesn't need to be there. We need to have a semitone between the 3rd and 4th degree. So the B has to be natural. But oh no, the 7th to 8th degree now, the 7th degree following on to the 8th degree, that needs to be a semitone as well. So we need to have an F sharp up there in order that this is G major. And then finally, let's bring that down again. You'll see F, G, A, B flat, because we're still in the key of F major. Giving me the third to fourth degree being a semitone. F, A natural to F, what am I saying? A natural to B flat gives me the semitone, and the seventh degree to the eighth degree is a semitone as well. So, long story short, if you want to play a C major, play from C to C with no sharps or flats. If you want to play a G major, play from G to G, but make sure that there's an F sharp in there. And if you want to play F major, play F to F, but have a B flat. A slightly longer story behind that is that the semitones need to be correct, which means that if you're not starting on a C, you're going to be coming across either sharps or flats, depending on what needs to happen to make sure that the semitones are correct. This is what you always get with me in lessons, is you get an understanding of how to do things, but through analysis, all composers understand music in a way that isn't necessarily the case if you are a performer. We understand the workings of the music, and that's what I take time explaining to do within lessons, is what to do, but moreover why to do it. So if you're looking for lessons, if you contact me at robinthornton.co.uk, then we can organise lessons either online or at my studio in Scotland. I will see you there. Bye for now.